Fender Deville. This is in for repair, and got all sorts of problems. First of all, when it came in, channel 1 wouldn't work. It got very low volume. Then it started working. And it was running fine, and it's still running fine. But if we so I don't know whether that's could be the sockets on there. That's the preamp tube on the first stage. Now this amp's had some work done on it, and what work has been done really well. These two capacitors have been changed here and here. They're obviously those dreaded IC caps, and the reason we know that, we can see the rest of them are still in there, and they need to come out of this amp. They are rubbish. These failed about 10 years ago. This amp is from the early 2000s, so they obviously didn't last very long. They must have been amongst the bad batch that they had, although I suppose 10 years isn't too bad for these things, but they don't usually last very long. So we need to get those out, because their lifespan will be short by now. It's amazing they've lasted that long. They're absolute rubbish. These resistors have been changed on here and lifted off the board. They've been done really well. Those are for the power supply, for the switching, which are these two relays that you can see in there. You can hear it frying away. So that's what these are for. These usually burn the board if they're left on the board long enough, especially as these capacitors get tired, because then it just seems to, this little circuitry just seems to get hotter and hotter. You can see these are IC caps as well. They're also loose, so the glue has obviously come off them at some point, or they've just never had any on. We've also got some more IC caps down here and here, so they need to come off. So they need to come out. Two more here. These, although these have been put in, and I might as well change those as well, because they were put in 10 years ago. So we'll just change the lot while we're in here. Now there's a lot of frying going on and things with this amp, as you can hear. We're just going. So I'm going to change the plate resistors as well while I'm in here. Now that might still not cure the frying on this amp, and you can see that the amount of resistors and tattle that's in this, that could take a bit of tracking down. But what we'll do is we'll just do the caps, do the plate resistors, check for dry joints. We suspect we've got some on these inputs by this by the way that's playing up. Now the humming is caused by my finger going in, but there's obviously something not right there, so we need to look at that. We need to clean the sockets, check the bias, of course, check this bottom board here, just to see if there's any dry joints around the tube sockets, and then we can run it up and have a listen and see what it's like. And you can see my dog someone's walked down the street, and my dog doesn't like people walking down his street, and you can actually see him looking out the window there. We go in and have a look at him. There we are, that's my dog. His name is Shaft, because he's cooler than Bond. Right, we've got this Hot Rod Deville on the bench. We're just going to do a few checks before we start taking this board out. So I've had a run through the schematic, and I've decided that I'm going to change all the plate resistors in this amp, because it is very noisy, and what I don't want to do is recap this, put the board back in, and then we've still got noise. So I'm going to change those as a precaution. and then we're going to check this board as well. But first off, we're going to focus on this main board. So the plate resistors are R4, R11, R16, R22, 57 and 58. They're the ones that are going to be changed. Now I've also got to check the mains voltage on this to see if it's set to 240. The last guy that worked on this amp may well have changed it, as he's done some good work, so it's quite possible maybe he has changed it, maybe not. I suppose it depends whether he realises or it occurs. No, it doesn't occur to everyone that work on these. So because if you don't know, you just assume. Why would you assume any different if they're being imported into this country? But anyway, enough waffling. So one of the ways, so let's just see what plate voltages we've got. 474. That seems a bit high. That's rather quiet then for some reason. So that's the other channel on there, the drive channel. Oh man, he's got some gain. There's some gain going on there. Yeah, so there's definitely problems there with those sockets by the look of it. They're dry jointed, I'm guessing. That should be the other plate. Yep, so that must be the centre tap. R7, not R70, sorry, one mind about P18. That's the centre tap, I'm guessing. Right, we'll switch off. Let's just check these caps are draining. Yeah, there they are. Yep, they've drained. I'm just going to ease that up a little bit if I can. Right, I've just done some voltage checks on this amp and a quick go on the bias. So the bias is for this tube is 10 watts and this one is 11.5. So the plate the filament voltage is measured 6.26, so that's good, and it looks like the power supply has been addressed and set to 240. I will check that, but I'm pretty sure it has. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to tweak this bias up and make sure this amp bias is okay before I take this board out, because what I don't want to do is put the board back in after I've recapped it only to find that the bias is not working correctly, and then I've got to take it out again. So let's just turn that bias up a little bit and see if we can get these tubes into a window. Seems to be every amp I get the bias has been turned down. I don't know why. Seems to be a running thread. Oh. So we've got 1.6 volts drop on there now. We had 1.2 before. Wow, we've got 27 milliamps on that tube now. We had 21 on it before. So that's still well under. The plate voltage was a staggering 485, which I thought was high when I first looked at this amp. And that's not really made much difference either. Now 488, so that means the mains voltage is probably increased. I haven't got this on the variac, so I'm only doing this rough. Let's turn it up. Let's just turn it up some more then. Right, let's just have a look now and see where we are. Not an easy thing to test on this amp. 1.98, that's somewhere close to what I'd expect on this amp. That's 34 milliamps. Still be a bit low. 16 watts, so that's still well under there. Remember, it's 30 watts dissipation for these, so we need to get them at 21. So that needs to come up quite a bit more. I've had this before on these Blues Deluxes and Devilles where the bias has been really low on them. Thinking back now, I did do another one. Right, let's have a look now. Might need to check that bias trim pot. I wonder if it's got some dust in it. I think this amp, I looked on the schematic, it's got like a fail-safe resistor in there. So if this pot fails, the bias goes cold. So we might just have to clean that and see if that's what's causing the problem here. Let's just switch off. Let's just give this bias pot a bit of a clean. We can. So we've cleaned the bias pot, and we're just going to check everything again now, just to see where we are. So I'm just going to check the volts drop now. 17.8, that's the maximum we can get out of that. And I think the other side is about a watt higher, so that'll probably be 18.8. I think what we'll do now, we'll tattle down and we'll let those cool, and I'm just going to get those in the tube tester just to see if they're showing signs of tiredness. They're certainly not drawing a lot of current, are they? They're obviously not the original tubes in here, and the original tubes that were in this amp obviously drew a lot more current than they're drawing. But if they're good tubes, we may have to just alter the feed resistor on the bias circuit just to get a bit less negative volts on there. That's if this set is a good set of tubes. So the reason I'm doing this now, as I do on a lot of them, is I can cut the resistor out and tack one in top side and set the bias on this amp, and then I can take the board out, do the caps, and then put the proper resistor for these tubes in. What I don't want to do is take this board out, recap it, and then we can't get the amp biased up. I mean, it's not bad at 17 watts, 17.5-ish watts, something like that. But to get the best out of this amp, we could do with that going up a little bit more. So when these tubes got put into this amp, and they just run pretty cool, they were just left and not biased. And the reason I know that is because if we look at this bias trim pot here, if we go in, just go in there, let me just switch another light on so we can see what we're doing. I'm just going to zoom in. So if you look at this bias trim pot, you can see some red paint on it there, and if I turn that away from it, you can see what that's been done at the factory. So it tells them, if you know, when this amp was relatively new and it goes back to the factory for a warranty claim, it tells you if someone's tinkered with the bias. And obviously if they've turned the bias up and the tubes are blown, they know that the bias has been tinkered with, and that's still in the same place as it's always been. So we've now got that maxed out, and we can only get 17.5 watts on these tubes. So just again, these JJs tend not to draw as much current as other tubes. and from what I've read and things, that's, you know, in my own experience. So we just need, if these are good tubes, we just need to alter the resistors in the bias circuit, or one of them, just one of them. And really, if we can get this set right, where, you know, where we've got probably half of this bias pot and we've got these in, then, you know, or probably 3/4 would be nice. 3/4 of the way up. The reason for that is that if anyone puts some tubes in that draw more current, they've got 3/4 of the travel of the pot to cool them down. Whereas if we have it at halfway or below, they haven't got as much scope. So try and make it so if somebody does put some tubes in this that are drawing a bit more current, they can get the bias in. Always leave it for the next person. You know, leave things right. It's a thing that a lot of people don't focus on when they're actually, you know, servicing an amp, but you always leave it right for the next guy. And a typical example of that is if this amp's been worked on before, if we look at these capacitors here, you can see that the guy put them in with the writing facing upwards so we can see what values they are, and he also put these resistors in, I'm guessing, and these are good quality ones, and you can see perfectly what they are. You know, he's not put them upside down so you can't read them, although you can go to the schematic and have a look, but even so, it's just common courtesy from one tech to another, really. Here's what I have done. Been and looked on the schematic. We've got 3 resistors in this bias circuit. We've got R77, which is that gentleman there, and he's 100k, he goes to ground. We've got a 51k, which I thought was 15, but when I put my other glasses on I could see it clearer. So that's 51k. I think that resistor is the fail-safe resistor if this pot decides to disconnect at any time. And then we've got R76, which is 10k, which is hiding behind these capacitors here. So I've changed R76 from 10k to 15k, and I've now got this amp in a window where we can set the bias. And if you look at the bias pot, it's now 3/4 of the way up. So we zoomed in there, and it's on standby, so there's no issues at the minute with the bias. So that's all the way down, and you can see the red paint there. That's all the way up, and we have got that, we know, because I'm engaging it to that, we know we've got that around 3/4. The chances of somebody putting any tubes in this that draw less current than these is pretty slim. These JJs are not drawing a lot of current. I've tested them on the tube tester, and the emissions are good on them. So this is all about leaving it for the next guy. Obviously, you know, we run out of sweep on the pot before we got these tubes biased properly. So while we're doing this, we're going to leave it right for the next guy. So the next guy comes along, he puts a set of tubes in, they're drawing more current. He's got 3/4 of the sweep on the pot to cool them down. So where if I put a resistor in this and then left it back there again, and then another set of tubes to put in that are drawing more current, he won't have the sweep on the pot. So we've got that roughly 3/4 up, and that's exactly where we wanted it. And we've increased that by 5k from 10k to 15. So we've got to look at how we're going to get this board out. The board's going to come out this way and fold over, and to get this board out we need to remove all the volume controls, the volume knobs that on there, the nuts on the other side to release the pots. We need to take the nuts off the jack sockets. Do you know, I think these jack sockets have been replaced, you know. They're not stock Fender ones. They look like they have. But yeah. Or maybe not, because these 3 are the same. Maybe not. But we've got to remove these 3 here as well. We've also, yeah, just those 3. So really it's just the pots and the jack sockets, and then we've got the usual deal with the screws here. You can see just the screws dotted around, and I think we'll be okay on this amp. With that, I think we'll get that out pretty easily. Quite a lot of caps to change though. I'm just hoping I've got all the values. Right, so I've got the board up and I'm looking at these sockets and they are dry jointed. Double digents, as I like to call it. And that one's dry jointed. That one is, and that one's beginning to split as well. So they just need the soda cleaning off them and reflowing. We've got the trusty T-box with all the gubbings in that's come off it. And I'll just take that out. And I always use these T-boxes to prop this up, because you never use anything metal on here, because while you're working on the board, moving it around, it scratches the bottom of the board, scratches the traces. It's not good. So the other thing is, always be careful when you're putting this board down. Make sure that you're not dragging it across these doofras that are the stanchions that hold it off the chassis. So which end shall we start at? I think we'll start at this end and address those sockets while we're at it. So the first gentleman that we're going to remove is this cap here, which has been in, we think, from what the customer was saying, has been in about 10 years. Now these caps are probably good. The guy that did the work on this did some good work on it, so they're probably good caps, but they're 10 years old. While we've got the board out, let's put some F&Ts in there and make it last another 20 years. So we've got these 22 at 500, ka-ching, and these are F&Ts for this and this one. And then we've got these are from modulus. These are from modulus amplification, what we used in the in Billy Baseman. And these are quite beefy things, you can see there, and we're using those for the just checking that, yeah, we're using those in place of the 100s there. We've got 2 of those and 2 47s there, and we're going to say good night to these IC caps because they're rubbish. I could think of a worse word for them, but I don't use those sort of words on the channel. Well, just when I said these are probably good caps, look at, I didn't spot that, you know. I didn't spot that. What we're looking through the camera at it all the time, and obviously now it's facing away from me, but that is all over. So that could be another problem why we got this problems with the channels as well. That's certainly not been helping things, has it? That's all over. So you can see it's bulged a little bit. You probably can't, but maybe you can on the camera. But yeah, he said good night. I might just oh, and the other one's the same as well. I've just looked at that. I'm just going to clip the other one out. Watch you don't clip that wire. There we go. Well, that came off easy, and that one's done as well. Well, they could. What are they? It says Leon or Leland. You can see those there. So yeah, those are done. Didn't spot that on either of them. What with I've not really bothered to inspect them because they're coming out anyway. So, but they certainly needed to come out. Well, even the ICs are better than those. They are trash. Right, I've just cut this cap out, which is one of the low voltage ones, 22 microfarad at 22 volts, and that looks like it's got a bit of a leakage onto me. It's quite hard to see, but I think it has. So I think we're definitely going to be replacing all of those. Right, we've got 3 parts of this recap done. So we've changed all of the caps down this side of the board except for 2, which unfortunately are on order. We've changed all of these. We've changed the main ones, changed those there, and we've got 3 more here, which you can see. Just hone in. You can see here we've got 3. 2 of those I've got, and 1 of those I'm going to have is also on order, and then this should be finished. Now I've repaired the jack sockets here, as you can see on there, and what I always do with these is I reflow them and then I suck all the solder off and then reflow them again, because I find that if and I don't know whether this solder is non-leaded or what, it probably is, but I find if I mix the leaded solder with what's already on, it sucks off much easier. So that's how I do that. So just go round, reflow them, then suck it all off and then reflow them again. That's the best way of doing them. So we've got those done. There we go, and we've just got the old, so we don't want to scratch that board or damage it, so we've got that in there if anybody's wondering. So yeah, so that's about it. There's also a capacitor here, if we just hold in, and you can probably just about see him. We just managed to fish him out and change him as well. So this amp will have had an absolute full recap, and to be fair, this amp needed it. Some of these small caps that I pulled out looked very grubby indeed and looked like they were leaking. So whether this, I don't know where this amp's been in its life, but or whether that's just tired. It said more, you know, a lot of hours, I don't know. But anyway, full recap. Now we'll have changed every single cap in it. So when we've done that, we just need to check round to see if there's any dry joints anywhere, and then we can put this back together and fire it up. I'm quite looking forward to getting this running. These are quite nice sounding amps, despite it's a PC board extravaganza. We're also going to check dry joints on these boards as well, see if there's any joints bad on these boards. I've looked down those boards, I don't see any more electrolytics. We'll test the grids to see if there's any leakage on them, on the preamp tubes, but these caps tend to last years and years. They're very, I've never found any of these sort of dark red caps leaking ever, so they're pretty good. Right, so I'm going to crack on, change these last 2 capacitors over here, and then we're going to have to wait until the others come in, which will probably be around about Wednesday or Thursday, unfortunately. What I also forgot to mention is I've changed these plate resistors. It's got 100k, 100k, 100k there. Oh, there's 4 of them actually, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I've done those. Now the phase inverter plate resistors are on this board, so I've measured them and they measure quite accurate. So I'm going to leave those, and as long as this isn't making a noise or we find there's a problem with them, then it means we've got to take this board out. I don't really want to do that for sake of 2 resistors that test good, so I'm going to leave those. Right, I've got this board back in, and we're going to run it up now. All the caps are done, so we're going to run this up and just make sure it all works. There we go. So we're just going to bring it up steady on the variac, keeping a close eye on the current meter. Check the bias again, make sure we've got bias on there. Yep. $125 milliamps, all looks good. I've got 120 volts on there now. Let's see if we're getting any volts drop. Go on to the next range on that meter. Yes, I think we've got sound. Yeah, we have. Drawing 248 milliamps now. Negative 30 on there, so that's okay. Obviously we're nowhere near up to full voltage. So we're just going to let that sit for a minute now. It's 170 volts on the variac. It's picking up my mobile phone, so I'll move it. It's all looking good. Yep. 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 That's all looking dang good. Just flick onto the clean channel. Yep. Yep, that all works. Channel switching works okay. It's all looking good. Just plug a lead into here. Yep. Yep, that all seems to be working. Just put a bit of gumption in that pot. On there, you probably can't see me on that, just in this one, needs a bit of gumption in it. But other than that, let's go up a bit more on the variac. .200 volts. Oh, it's spam. Hello? Hello?
Hi, this is Chrissy from the Heat Loss team. And the reason for my call is to see if your home qualifies for the National Green Home Initiative. So this is not a sales call. To see if your home qualifies, could I ask if you own the property or rent it?
You're a bit nosy, aren't you, policeman?
No.
You're not a policeman.
That's all from me. Have a great day and goodbye.
Bye! That must be the 16th millionth trillionth energy call. You get those every day. Energy companies. Very strange behaviour. So I just make fun of them now because I'm getting bored with them. Probably shouldn't, but as long as I'm not rude. She obviously has no sense of humour. And I do. Right, anyway, I've digressed enough on that. Back to this. Also revert back to my dialect that I try not to, because people can't understand what I say when speaking my local dialect. Right, we're full up at 240 now. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to make sure everything's tight, all the screws, make sure everything's bang on right with it, and then put the knobs on and we'll have a listen. Right, we've got it all back together. We've got the knobs on and everything. I've just checked the bias again, and we have got a little bit more plate voltage than we had before now, so I've just had to do a bit of a tweak on it, but we're still good on it. Probably that's because of the new capacitors that we've got in it now, and it's running so much more efficient. It's got rid of those crappy IC caps, but whether it's that I don't know, but it yeah, it's all looking good. So what we're going to do now, we're going to run this up on the 4x12, and then I'm going to put it in its case. Right, it's back in its case, so we'll have a listen. nice clean tone it's got there. Let's try the other channel. Press that button there. This amp is incredibly loud, really loud. So that'll do it for this one. So thanks for watching. You all take care, and I'll see you all in another video. Bye bye for now.